Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Alex. I'm a life coach, and this channel is all about self-development and helping you to live a happier and more fulfilling life. And this series is all about me reviewing some of my favorite music, TV shows and films, and I want to share with you the deep learnings that I made from each of them, because when I watch some of these things and listen to music, I really listen to them from a different perspective where I'm trying to take a learning from them. I'm also trying to enjoy them, but I always think that there's something really deep to learn from anything that you can consume. So on this episode, I'm going to be reviewing the latest James Bond movie, No Time to Die, which is obviously the last one with Daniel Craig as James Bond. And first of all, before we jump in, I just want to say I think Daniel Craig's done a fantastic job with the role and the character arc, which we'll kind of discuss in this episode anyway. If you haven't seen the film, this is your spoiler alert, because I'm probably going to share some stuff that you may not want to know. Who knows? So this is a really interesting film because, like I said, it was the last part to Daniel Craig's kind of arc with the character. And we all know James Bond's been very famous. You know, there's been over 20 odd films or whatever, been around for years and years. And he's been this kind of icon of, the spy world and this kind of intimate role that he's played in the past. It's always been this kind of playboy, flashy, kind of really like chiseled, good looking guy kind of role, right? But since Daniel Craig came in with Casino Royale, the role's been a little bit more gritty. Like, yes, there's been true elements to the kind of original James Bond playboy character, but there's been a grittier side to the character, which has been really interesting, and which has led us through the 5 movies to the point of No Time to Die. So I'm going to rewind a little bit and just start from like the Casino Royale, the first film with Daniel Craig as Bond, because that film really showed a character who was really flawed. They took us on this story with someone who was a bit of a rogue. He was only really interested in himself, very egocentric, and he was a little bit of a live wire because of that. There was a lot more of a gritty side to the character that was played. And as we've traveled through the films with Daniel Craig, that character has kind of developed and unfolded over time, and we've seen different sides to the character, and there's been a bit more story around James Bond's life than what we've seen in kind of the previous movies, where it's just been like this, the headlines of like, he's a playboy, he drives flash cars, and he has these gadgets, and he's a spy, and blah blah blah. And it was very kind of old school fire. But these newer films have brought, like I keep saying, a really gritty but vulnerable side to the character, which has been beautifully explored throughout the arc, but particularly in this last movie. So the latest film, No Time to Die, is the final piece in the jigsaw for Daniel Craig, and it basically starts with him sort of being on his own in Jamaica, and he gets visited by a couple of characters that we know, one that we don't know, and gets asked to kind of take part of this escapade that they're going on to find out what's been going on with like all of this other stuff which relates to the other movies, which I won't go into now. But the narrative of the story is basically that this genetic virus has been created which can target people via their genetics. So basically they can take the genetic code of someone, say me, they can implement it to the virus and they can put it out into the world, and then anyone who picks up that part of the virus and comes into contact with me, it will only be me who gets affected by it, and I will die. So they kind of can target people by the genetics in the virus to specific people that they want to kill. So it becomes a bit of a like a terrorism thing with this virus. And the reason I say this is because the film picks us up, after the latest movie. James is kind of in this place where he's feeling a bit broken again. He's left his role with MI6 and he's living on his own, like in a really quiet place in Jamaica. And he kind of at the beginning loses trust in the person that he's fallen in love with. And in previous movies, we've seen James fall in love with a character, and she ended up taking her own life to pretty much save the world, I guess. And it kind of left James in a place of heartbreak because he's the first kind of woman he's let into his life like that, etc., etc. And then as we fast forwarded through the movies, he's met this new partner who he's fallen in love with. But the movie No Time to Die sets us up with this scenario where it looks like that she's betrayed him. So he kind of cuts her off and kind of tells her never, he doesn't want to see her ever again, and he kind of then cuts himself off from the world in a way, I guess, to take himself to Jamaica. And what happens throughout the movie is this story unfolds. It becomes a story of learning to love and let love into your life, and dropping the ego story that you have around yourself. So the way that the movie unfolds is that James finds out that this new partner of his actually has his child. They have a young, because we fast forward in time, I think she's 6 at the time, 6-year-old girl, 5-year-old girl or something. And this is obviously all news to him. And, you know, being a James Bond movie, and a kind of the villain gets involved and ends up basically kidnapping his child and etc. So he has to go and save her. And what happens is throughout the movie, James just becomes really invested in this new story that has opened up in his life, because he's now found out he's got a kid. He now finds out that he needs to try and save this kid, and he becomes involved in something that we haven't really seen for a long time, because all of a sudden, as I said at the start of the series, with Daniel Craig, the character was very egotistical. He was very me-centric. He was very a rogue. He was a live wire. And while he still has some of those elements to his character, what happens is as he starts to see that story about himself doesn't have to be true, that doesn't have to be the story that he lives his life through, he slowly begins to drop that story from his life. And he understands that there's more things that are important to him in the world, in a sense, that he's far more connected to on a deeper level than his ego. So he learns to start to drop his ego. And this story of him having to go and save this child of his and his partner, in a way, is his journey, what I see, with not just learning to love, but learning to love the parts of himself that he has neglected for so long. He's neglected the nurturing side, the loving side, the compassionate side, because he's just become this story in his own mind, which is very egocentric, and it's basically this kind of stone cold playboy killer, right? That's the character. But we see a softer side to James, where he's starting to show a more vulnerable side to his character, because he's able to drop the story that he's been telling himself for so long, and he's realizing that this egocentric story that I've been telling myself isn't actually the true me. It's a kind of charade that I've been putting on. It kind of comes from this place where it's like, it's what I've told myself that you guys expect of me, so that's what I've become. And he starts to realize that it's not true. That's just something that he's started to believe, and he's led himself to believe in his own life. And when he sees that that's not true, when he sees that it's not the case, that he has to believe this story anymore, and he starts to understand that he can experience his life through a different lens of love and compassion, because he's now got this situation with his daughter that he's found out he's got, he starts to open up to a different side of himself. He starts to peel away the layers and peel away the stories that he's held on himself. And it becomes about accepting those parts of himself, and through that becoming a more loving person. And that's a very beautiful journey, because that's something that I've been through in my own life, and I know a lot of people that I work with and speak with have been through in their own lives, is like learning to drop the stories that you have about yourself in order to see that you can come from this place in your own life where you're a lot more loving and a lot more compassionate, not just to yourself, but to others and the things that you have in your life. And this is what we see in this movie, is James like going through this journey of exploring that for himself on a really deep level. And we get to the point at the end of the movie where James has to make a decision. Does he go back to, basically they have to blow up this island that the virus is being farmed on, and he opens these bomb shelter doors for the rest of his team to blow up the island, but these doors close. So he's at this point where he's like, he knows the missiles are coming in and they're going to be here soon, but does he want to go back and open the doors? If he does, he's probably going to die on that island because the missiles are going to come in. Or does he want to flee the island and take the risk that the missiles are going to hit the island and manage to blow up this virus farm? And there's a moment where he has to make that decision. And his decision becomes one of, this isn't about me. This isn't about me and trying to save myself. This is about trying to save everyone else and the people that I love. And he finds out through the kind of interaction that he has with the big villain in the film that the villain has managed to get the virus onto James, and the virus that he holds on, that he's created, that he's put onto James in the movie, directly targets his partner and his daughter. So James knows now that he can't go about seeing his partner or his daughter, like going in contact with them, kissing them, touching them, because he will pass this virus onto them and it will kill them because it's been genetically designed to target them, this specific version of it. So the decision that he has to make in that moment with the missiles is like, well, do I save myself knowing that I'm going to have to live the rest of my life not being able to see my daughter and my partner who I love, and potentially this virus is still out there on a big scale, or do I put myself in the sacrificial place to open those bomb doors so that the missiles can blow up the island and the farm where the virus is being created, and my partner and my child will be able to live a safe and maybe not a very happy life initially because they'll be sad, but a safe and happy life, because the virus that he's got on him that's going to affect them can't get to them because he's the only person who currently has it. And it's a very interesting moment because the character now has to decide, do I want to sacrifice myself in the name of love, or do I want to save myself in the name of ego? And this battle between, this battle he has between his ego and the love that he holds takes place inside of him. And the thing that he realizes in that moment is that the thing that's always going to win here is love. Because if he takes himself off the island and he saves himself, he's gonna kill himself from heartbreak. He's probably going to drink himself into a hole because he knows he can't see his daughter. And so he has to park this idea of saving himself, this ego side, this, oh, it's all right, I'll just find another girl, I'll just find the next thing, I'll just whatever, because he knows that's not going to be a possibility for him, because he wants to be able to stay in touch with his daughter and his partner. Or does he come from this place of love where it's like, it's not about me, I'm going to have to sacrifice myself here so that I'm going to lose my life, but it means that they can go on and live their life from a very safe space, and I'm going to have to do the thing which is not just the best for them, but the best for everyone else. And that's the decision he makes. And it's a very sad, but it's a very profound moment in the film, because it's the first time across the movies, a lot of the movies actually, not just the ones with Daniel Craig, where we've seen James Bond, the character, put himself first, put someone else and everyone else first before himself. So he's taken himself out of this story of I and ego, and he's learned to, over the timeline of the film, learn to drop this story that he has about his self-importance and his ego and I, and come from this more loving and compassionate place, which has meant that he's made this really big decision that he realizes isn't actually about him. It's about the ones that he loves and everyone else in the world, and all of the people that can be saved by his actions. And if he doesn't come from that loving place, he's not able to make that decision for himself. And I think that's such an amazing place when you look at the arc of the character and where he started from this very self-centered, egocentric person to this person who's sacrificing himself for the people that he's loved. He's taken himself and this ego completely out of the equation, and he's just made a decision based purely on love. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, and if you learned something new, or if you learned something about yourself, I'd love to invite you to send me a message on Instagram at I am Alex Manzi, or if you're watching the video, drop a comment below and let me know what you learned from this episode. I'd love to hear what your perspective on some of these learnings that I made is. If there's anything you disagree with, drop me the message, drop me a comment and let me know, because I'd love to hear from you. And I want to thank you for checking out this episode today, and I will see you for the next one.